Irene, we need 4 members of the BET for a quorum, correct?
I think 7, yes, definitely. So you have 1, 2,
We need
3.
We have 4. We have 4 now.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
you're good.
All right. So Tom, do we want to start the recording and go ahead and get underway?
Yeah, YouTube is good to go and Zoom is good to go. You are on your way.
Great. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the September 11th regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Tax. Madam Clerk, would you call a roll, please?
Mayor Rilling. Mr. Abrams,
Here?
Mr. Constant,
Here.
Mr. Gilleret,
Here.
Mr. Casimis, Miss Yan,
Here.
Mayor Rilling, and Mr. Casimis. So we have 1, 2, we have 4, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Irene. According to our agenda tonight, we have just a few items. The first is approval of 2 sets of minutes, one from the August 7th regular meeting and one from the August 21st special meeting. Can I get somebody to move approval of the minutes, please?
So moved. This is Troy.
Thank you, Troy. Anyone have any changes, amendments, corrections to the minutes? I do have one at the top of page 10 of the online report, the second sentence. He explained that the site is approximately even acres. That should read 11 acres. Any other changes or comments to the minutes? All right, can we get, I'll take a vote to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I will note that I have to abstain from approving the August 7 minutes because I was not there, but I can approve the 21st minutes, so that's all approved. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, beginning on page 13 of our package, is a couple of transfers that we need to approve for this month. Tom, I will turn it to you to lead us through that discussion.
Sorry, just to confirm, you approved both minutes, right? The regular and the special?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so two items from contingency on the transfer agenda this evening. The first one is in the fire department. We have Chief Gatto here to speak to this one. And again, as I said, this is from contingency and it's in the amount of $60,000. So Chief, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So we're asking, this is an emergency repair actually, because we have a 2009 frontline rescue truck that has pretty much failed internally, severe internal damage from failure of oil lubrication system and requires a complete overhaul, which if you're not a mechanic like I'm not, it consists of all the internal parts, which is the pistons, the cam, crankshaft, journals are called, valves, as well as turbo and whatever else that needs to be replaced. So we sent it up to the Cummins is the manufacturer of the motor. And we sent it up to their Bronx, New York. They're a certified Cummins repair shop. And after completely checking the whole motor out and everything, it was their recommendation that instead of trying to replace the motor piece by piece, that it would be to our benefit to put in a refurbished motor, which comes with a 2-year, 200,000 mile warranty. And their estimate was actually $63,700, but they included $5,000 taxes, which we would not have to pay. So we're rounding it off to, I'm asking for 60,000 for that repair. That's really about it.
Chief, one question for me before I open it to the other members of the BET. Understand that Cummings is recommending a complete engine replace and a 2-year and 200,000 mile warranty on that. But is, at this point in time on a 2009 vehicle, is this the most cost-effective solution for the city?
So it is for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is our frontline rescue truck. In the meantime, we put in for a new rescue truck last year for approval, which we did receive, but unfortunately, it's a 2-year process to get a new truck. So this truck has to last us 2 more years. But because we're putting a new engine in it, it will become our main spare, which should give us, several more years, if not another 5 or 10 more years with this, because the body and everything on this truck is fine. So we will take this eventually out of frontline and put it into the surplus as a reserve. So every time the frontline needs to go out for service, this one will go in service.
Thank you, Chief. And apologies, I had forgotten to ask for a motion to move the transfer agenda. Can I get a motion to move the transfer agenda and discussion?
So moved, Troy.
Thank you, Troy. Additional questions for the chief from anybody else on the board?
Yeah, Chief, this is Troy. I'm looking at this 2-year, this warranty, 2-year, is it 2-year or 200,000 miles? That's a lot of miles for a fire truck. They don't put on that.
That is a lot of, yeah, I agree. It's an awful lot of miles, but I'm reading unless my mechanic wrote something wrong, but he comes with a 2-year, 200,000 mile factory warranty. So.
It would take, it's
I can
going,
look into it further, but I'm only going by what he wrote down. On their estimate, on the Cummings estimate, if they were to do warranty work on it, it would be 2-year, 100,000 miles. So maybe it is possible a refurbished one could last, 2 years.
I'm just saying,
time.
a fire truck is going locally. It probably doesn't put 50,000. I don't know, a year,
Well, I
right?
could tell you, that's a good question. I could tell you that this truck now, 2009, has almost 81,000 miles.
Right, so that's over
2009.
12 years, yeah.
It only has 36,600 hours on the motor.
Well,
then
okay,
to
I'm just
say-
saying, that's a very generous, I
Yeah,
don't know.
we would never do 200,000 miles in 2 years. That's sure.
Hmm.
So we're only basically looking at a 2-year warranty.
Right?
Yeah, it'd be nice if you could move the, well, whatever, yeah, that's, okay.
Yeah.
How much is the new truck again? Did you say? I'm sorry. If you had to get a new front line.
Well, we put in for $1.9 million, which was approved. We haven't gone out to bid yet or anything, but we're talking to a few salesmen, and it's going to be, we're hoping, maybe the 1.4 or 5 range. But
Okay, so this
You
60,000, you said, this 60,000 will get us, you said, maybe 5 years, even if it's a backup.
easy.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Additional questions for the chief?
I have an additional comment, Ed, just to give a little more information on this. The motor vehicle parts account for the fire department is funded at $145,000 this year. And I know this is kind of early in the year to be coming to contingency, but they've already encumbered 70,000 and we're just a little over 2 months into the year. So, we could say, hey, let's do this and then wait till we need it to get the contingency funds, but we're going to need it. So their average spending for the last 4 years has been 140,000 in that account, with a peak of 221,000 last year. Most of you probably recall Chief Gatto being here numerous times in the last fiscal year.
Yes.
Over supply chain issues and inflation related to his parts.
Yep.
So that's why we're coming this early in the year for it.
Thank you.
Chief, I have a thought. Maybe you can talk to Clemens and get them to stick by the 200,000 mile guarantee and take away the 2-year limitation.
Exactly.
Yeah, we could try.
Okay, I'll
I'll make
help.
a note of that.
I'll help you if you want. The point is, if they're willing to stand behind their repairs and merchandise for 200,000 miles, and that's going to be 5 or 10 years for us, let's get them. We don't need the 2-year limitation.
Okay,
Agreed.
I'm gonna make a note of it and I'll have Patrick, who's our mechanic, contact them and see if we can get this straightened out.
Okay, and if you want me in on that call, I'll be happy to participate in that discussion. I've done that
Okay,
several times.
thank you.
Sure.
Any additional questions for the chief before we move to the legislative department transfer? Okay. Again, thank you, chief. Tom?
Yeah, the second item is related to the city charter rewrite. This comes out of the legislative.
Guys vote?
What's that?
We'll vote on both of them at once, chief.
Okay,
You've only got another 5 minutes, chief. This will be pretty straightforward, I think. So,
that's all right. Your time.
so this is related to the city charter rewrite. You'll recall that we contracted with outside counsel to assist us in this process, a noted Connecticut expert in charter rewriting. So if you also recall that during the budget process of last year, they'd indicated that this would take into the first part of the first half of fiscal 24. So we chose not to fund it during the 24 process with the caveat that it'd come back for contingency funds when we had a better idea. So now we do have a better idea. We asked Attorney Stephen Mednick is his name. We asked him to provide us with an estimate to get us to the election in November, where this will be voted on by the taxpayers. They came back at $37,500. So that will be coming out of contingency, and anticipating that the next question will be how much will it be in total in conjunction with previous year's expenditures. It was 136,900 in fiscal 23. So when you add this in, we are just under 175,000 for the total effort. And this should be the last time for this effort or for this account this year.
And Tom, we're confident on the 37.5 estimate that he will not exceed that in billable hours or.
Yeah, we can hold his feet to the fire. He gave us a month-by-month estimate with the estimated amount of hours, concluding in November with a 10-hour effort. He would probably be fielding some questions as we approach the election day and perhaps a little bit afterwards. But after that, his efforts are done.
Thank you. Questions from other board members?
And anticipating another next question, that we have already spent about 50,000 out of contingency, which puts us at $1,450,000. So these two items tonight, just under 100,000, will be at $1,350,000 remaining for the balance of the year.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions before we vote on the two transfers? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the transfers as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The transfers pass. Thank you very much, Chief, and thanks, Tom, for representing the legislative team.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Good
Thank you.
night. Next, we have other business, and starting with the tax collector's report on page 21, I believe. And Lisa, good to see you again. I hope things are calming down a little bit for you.
Not really. Funny you should say that, but good evening, folks. We did not yet finalize our month of August for current collections. We did finalize it for prior year, just actually this afternoon, a couple hours before this meeting, and we did hit 99% for our 14-month collection cycle that began the prior July on the immediately prior grant list. So through the month of August 2023, On the 2021 grand list, we did have a combined collection rate of 99.03%. And once we close the month for our current levy, I will give you the normal spreadsheets that I usually give you. In the meantime, what I did was I tried to prepare a narrative for your meeting. I should have everything else by the end of this week for finance and claims. But the big news right now is that we're in the process of now sending past due notices, which are called demand notices, demand for payment for taxpayers who did not pay their installment in July. We did only real estate and business personal property because we are still dealing with the motor vehicle levy. I'm sure that you read in the local media about the motor vehicle bills. All of those bills that needed to be adjusted, the bills were in the mail by last Friday. There were more than 1,000 bills that were mailed by our staff, basically on a case-by-case basis as taxpayers came in. And then the rest were done in an automated process. Those bills went out Friday. Taxpayers have 30 days in which to pay without any interest. So they have until, we're giving them until October 10th. So that's our big news right now. We were very happy to get those bills in the mail and try to put this all behind us, but I can answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, I would, plan to see you next month and give you a further update on where we stand with the current collection.
Thank you. Well, congratulations on the 99% collections number through July. That's impressive and a lot of hard work on your part. Glad to have seen that the 3,800 corrected auto bills did go out. Hopefully that quiets some of the noise that was in the system. So thank you for that. Questions or comments from anybody else on the board related to Lisa's report? Okay. Thank you, Lisa, and we'll talk next month when you have even more detail.
Thank you. Stay well, folks.
Thank you, Lisa.
Tom, I believe next is Oak Hills. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have Alan Dutton tonight, and I believe he has an intro for us.
Good evening, everybody. Is Denise Brown on by any chance?
She is, Alan. She is.
Okay, great. So I'm going to give the financial report, and then if you could just, I'm going to introduce Denise Brown, who is the new treasurer of the Oak Hills Authority, and we'll just give a quick update on the investment part of what we were talking about. So here we are, basically with 1 month under our belt, the month of July, which is the first in our fiscal season, and when we look at our numbers here, we look at obviously our revenue, our expenses, and what we got left. So we look at this year, the month of July, we look at what the budget was in last year, just for comparison purposes. So we're off to a good start in July. Our revenue was $373,000, which was $13,000 over budget, and compared to $351,000 from last year. So 22 over last year, 13 ahead of budget on revenue. Here again, golf carts. We continue to do well in that area. Our non-residents usage is up by 9%, and our residents actually is up by 9% as well for the month. Our seniors, not so much, but the residents and the non-residents out of towners are really soaking that on the revenue side. Expense-wise, we spent $201,000. We budgeted to spend $200,000. Last year we spent $184,000. Difference obviously between last year and this year from an actual expense account was we do have now a general manager, and that's a fair chunk of change obviously, and also some other payroll increases due to increase in business. So after 1 month, we were budgeted to make $161,000. We made $172,000. So we're $11,000 over budget, which is always a good start to the year. And last year we actually made $167,000 in the month of July, so $5,000 ahead of last year. So I think a good start so far to the season. Our general manager Jim Holliday, I think, has been well received. Is getting to know people. started to get some stuff done from a maintenance point of view, getting the clubhouse painted and stuff like that. So we continue to be optimistic. So if you have any financial questions, I'll take them. If not, I'd probably like to hand over to Denise, who's our new treasurer, Denise Brown, and she'll give a quick update on the investments.
Alan, just Troy, before you move to Denise, and I welcome that. Just curious, just give us an update on the restaurant. Is any more past due? We come to the end of the season again.
No, we're up to. He's up to date, Troy. Basically, the agreement we came was, there's an amount that was past due, which we agreed to spread over a 12-month period. Plus, he's up to date on his rent, and up to date on utilities, and so up to date as of this moment in time. Yes.
And is the lease up for renewal at the end of the season, or is it?
No, the lease is a 3-year lease. It's a 3-year lease.
Okay.
But there is a, there are, outs on both sides basically. But it's a 3-year lease at this moment. It's what we have.
Okay, great. And Jim is doing a great job. The new GM, I see him there. He made himself very visible, and the course is in great condition. Thank you, Alan.
Good. Thank you.
Alan, can I ask a question just out of curiosity? What do you attribute the somewhat of a turnaround in the restaurant to from say last year? I know you had talked about consistent hours, a consistent menu, those types of things. Do you see those paying off?
Well, when we say a turnaround in the restaurant, obviously I think one of the major positives is that the restaurant has been open all the time. The bar has been open and the restaurant has been open, so it's been available for use. And the landlord is paying the rents, which is great. I mean, the success of the restaurant, I'm not sure about, because that's his business per se. How busy he is, when you look at the course, obviously the halfway house has been doing very well, and the beverage cart does well. The restaurant, it's a combination of a la carte business and private party business. And I'm really don't know exactly how his numbers are, how he's doing, what his level of business is. But we're getting the money that we are owed, so that's important, I think.
I remember a fairly bleak tenor around this time last year, so it's good to see it being much more positive.
Yes.
That was it. So Denise, are you ready? Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet everybody here for the first time. Basically, I'm just going to give a little report on, we're going to be investing some of the money that we have been able to accumulate from our cash balance through the past year. And Mark had come up with a year cash balance report. And then we also did a projection for the, starting July 2023 through June 2024. So we're fairly comfortable with figuring that we're probably going to invest maybe around $500,000. And I had a meeting with Karen Vitale, and she's a very nice lady. She helped us to go over some of the investment options that we have. One of the ones that we kind of both agreed upon that we thought was a good one was with JP Morgan. It's an investment that is insured with the SIPC up to about $500,000. It's a money market, it's open-ended, and the variable is 4.93. So there are no fees involved as far as if we had invested the money. If we invest the money, say we take it out for a year, the money market, if we need to pull out $50,000, $100,000, we're not fined or have any fees on that. So that's a good option for us. And then there was another option for a CD with a bank called Trustmark National Bank, which is also through JP Morgan, which is FDI insured up to $250,000. So we're leaning to those two investments. We have a meeting with JP Morgan this week. Mark will be meeting with him. And we need to get, our paperwork in order so that we have everything written properly to, give to JP Morgan. And, it's a first for us to have some money to invest. So we're pretty excited about actually being able to do something instead of focusing in on all our loans that we may have in our debt. So, you know, it's a good course for us. You know, we've been able to accomplish a lot in the past 2 years. Unfortunately, I hate to say that for us, COVID was a positive thing for the golf course. And so we've been able to accumulate some money now to look forward to investing it and then hopefully putting money back into the golf course to improve a lot of the things that need to be improved on.
Denise, I echo your comments that it's a good thing and speaks to the management of the management team that there's money to invest. That said, in prior conversations in front of the BET here, there's been discussion about, I'll call it piggybacking on some of the city investments, some of the city banking relationships. Have you or anybody from the authority had those conversations with Henry? Are we tied out that, you know, from the city's perspective, these are the right investment types to make, that there's not other options based on where the city is also investing?
Ed,
I mean,
so,
oh, sorry.
excuse me, Denise. Karen Vitale is our deputy controller. She works for Chitsame. So if Denise coordinated with her on potential investments, by definition, she's in charge of our cash investments. So it would seem to be that piggybacking has been discussed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other
Question.
questions?
Yeah, Ed, this is Troy. Denise, did you say the investment with JP Morgan Chase, you said the FDIC insurance was 500,000? Did I hear that correctly? Because I know 250,000 is the limit, right, Henry? I mean,
Oh, for the JP Morgan investment?
yeah, you mentioned, I thought you mentioned 500,000 would be.
Yeah, that's SIPC, which is a different secured investment, which is Securities Investor Protection Corporation. So they have a different level of security that they secure their money with versus the banking, which is the FDIC, which is the 250.
SIPC is the government body that insures brokerage accounts at securities firms and has a higher limit. FDIC is the insurance body for commercial deposits in banks, and that's the lower 250.
Oh, yeah, I thought you said FDIC for both. I'm very familiar with the guidelines, but that number for the SBIC sounds right, Henry, for 500,000.
It sounds right to me. I'm sure they've checked it out, and
Okay,
I'm sure the key is to make sure whatever investments we have are insured so they don't disappear.
right. I know you guys, you work and you have a program with the banks with large deposits and they have programs, but it's good that they talked. So I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Okay.
Additional questions or comments? Denise, Alan, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Tom, is there any other business that we need to cover this evening?
No, I didn't jinx it by predicting a smooth and fast meeting. I'll just remind everybody the next one will be Monday, October 2nd, and at that one we will be talking about rollovers. Those are the 2023 surplus funds that division chiefs and department heads will be asking to roll into the fiscal 24 budget. So that one might be a bit lengthier.
Okay.
I have a question. Can we talk at all about the memo that you sent out relative to the reductions to approved but unfunded capital projects?
Sure.
My question is, so it's about 228 million that's outstanding. What are you hoping for as in terms of cuts, and how much of a cushion are you looking to have below the $400 million outstanding debt?
Okay, a couple of different things going on.
Yeah.
225 million was only the list of projects. I did not put down how much cash we had. And Chitsame was out last week. She's getting me that number this week. I estimate that the net is about 175, 180 million.
Okay.
So if the projects are 220, and we have 40 million unexpended bond proceeds. So we really have 180 that we have to fund, okay? Second, the amount of debt outstanding. Originally, which I think goes back about 2.5 years now, our financial advisor, Bill Lindsay, did a rigorous analysis of the AAA and AA credits in Connecticut and determined, again, approximately, that for our size, our grant list, and all the other factors, that we should be cautious about having an absolute debt outstanding of more than 400 million. About 6 months ago during the budget process, I asked him to update that. And at that time, he indicated Moody's had changed their methodology. And one of the key factors is that they're giving more explicit credit and weighting to pension plan and OPEB funding. And those are two of our great strengths. Our pension plans are 75% funded, and our OPEB is over 95% funded. So those strengths led him to revise the estimate to say that our outstanding debt could go up to 500 million before we get nervous about losing the AAA bond rating. However, with the 70 million that we raised last month, we're now at about 450 million outstanding. And consequently, our annual capital budget has been running in the range of 40 to 50 million, just the regular stuff, the pavements, the sidewalks, the technology. It just costs a lot to maintain the place. And then you put on top one-time events or things that are only ordered every 5 or 10 years. So there was some concern that this coming budget year, we may not have enough room for all the things we want to borrow against before bumping up against that $500 million limit. There's another key ratio that the analysts look at. It's the amount of debt service expenditures, which is the combination of principal and interest payments on the bonds, compared to our total expenditures for the operating budget. Last year, or this past budget year, we had a $40 million debt service line, and we had a $425 million budget. So we were knocking on 9.4, 9.5%. Concern would be next year, we may get to 10%. And 10% is going to be like the 500 million. It's a real red mark that the rating analysts look at carefully. So looking at the whole picture, the mayor determined he wanted everyone responsible, department heads and chiefs, to review the capital projects that they are responsible for and to make cuts. Cuts would come in two varieties. One would be, those are projects out of that 175 million that have not been funded. But the other is at the tail end of a project. We have a number of projects where, for all intents and purposes, the project is complete, but we still have dollars in the budget. And the mayor wants that closed out. We want transparency. We don't want buffers that are artificial. We want the most accurate numbers. So the first step in the process was asking everyone to review their list and to come back and tell us what changes they can make. Can they trim down a project and shave some millions of dollars off the project? Can they eliminate some projects at this time? Can they stretch it out and postpone them for several years? So as our existing debt matures, we would have more availability. So right now, we gave everyone 2 weeks to review it, come back with their initial thoughts. It would then be reviewed by senior executives, the mayor, Greg Burnett, the head of the council, Tom Livingston, chief of staff, and myself. We'll look it over and then we'll react based on what we see. I have no expectations right now as to an estimated amount.
Historically, what has been the cushion between outstanding and our perceived debt ceiling? So historically, if it was 400 million, did we have a 50 million cushion, a 30 million cushion? I guess we would have had a $20 million.
It goes year by year. So what
Right.
happens is, my first few years here, there was about 20 million of debt maturing every year. Okay, so if we issued 50 million, 20 million would replace the maturing debt and we would increase the debt amount by 30. More recently, we've had smaller amounts maturing, 16, 18 million, and the amount that we're borrowing every year goes up. So I would sell you with the $400 million limit, I believe the number we had was 360 or 370. We only had 30 or 40 left. And so there was concern we might run out of room. And then when Bill Lindsay did his analysis, we got some breathing room. We went to the market strong because we had so many demands. We navigated a very choppy market and we got 70 million at 3.74%, which was really positive. But 70 million ate up a lot of that extra 100 million. So that's why I estimate we're at about 450 now with a limit of 500.
What's the average tenor of our debt outstanding? Because it sounds like in what you were saying about the amortization going down, it sounds like we have increased the tenor of our bonds.
We had, before I got here, the maximum duration was 15 years. And as we got into that massive program of rebuilding the public schools, my feeling was a school is good for a 40 to 50 year life and match the life of the asset with the debt. I said, let's go to 30-year debt. So since I've gotten here, we've been issuing 30-year bonds. We're very conservative. We don't have balloon payments. We have level debt service over the 30-year life. So as those kick in, and in fact, this past offering, because of the reversal in the bond yield curve, I was hoping we had to borrow money for the WPCA and for the schools. So I figured that was 30 years. But for the city debt, I was hoping to get away with 15 or 20-year debt to get that lower debt rate. But under the advice of our financial advisor, he said, yes, that would be the lowest debt cost, but it would impact our debt service amounts over a 20-year life rather than 30. So we decided to go out a little bit further. So we look at all those issues, we try to pull it together. The real issue is we have 175 million of already approved requests, plus let's assume 40 to 50 million every year in new requests. And so by examining all of the projects, we hope to be able to fit next year's borrowing under the 500 and making sure that they are invested in the highest priority.
When you close out that are just sort of hanging in there, like $1 million that hasn't been spent, that's just going to go back into the general kitty, correct? It doesn't stay with the department.
Right. Now,
Okay.
there is a valid reason sometimes to keep monies there. When we build a school, which can take 4 or 5 years from the beginning till the end of construction, we often have state reimbursement. In the past, it might have been 33%. More recently, it was changed to 80%. What happens is along the way, we get reimbursed 89%. There's an 11% withholding until the satisfaction of the total project. At the end of the project, but it might be 2 or 3 years after the completion, the state audits our expenditures. And what happens is they often declare certain expenditures non-reimbursable. So a 33% reimbursement rate might ends up ultimately getting us 28%. And an 80% in reimbursement. In Stamford, they had a school that was promised 80% reimbursement, but at the end of the day, it was only 49% reimbursement. So there are two issues in there. Right now, knock on wood, the city is pretty flush with cash. And if we don't get reimbursed by the state for 2-3 months as the project goes along, I can finance that. But when you have a $225 million high school where the project's going to be out there for 5, 6, 7 years, maybe a couple of years longer until we get total reimbursement, I may have to bond for the financing costs along the way for that construction. So that's another issue that we're dealing with. So I just see requirements for more financing. And again, we're trying to thread a needle. On one side, I've been in the position in distressed governments where there's not a lot of cash floating around. And the public works people and others tell me, this is our season. From May until October, we've got to get the construction done. So it's an approved project. They authorize it, they get the construction, they get the invoices. I have to make sure we have money available to pay them. On the other hand, the IRS rules say, if you borrow tax-free money, you have to spend it down within certain strict guidelines. So we're trying to make sure we project cash flows both out for the project and in for the reimbursements accurately. And at the same time, have enough money to satisfy those needs without violating any of the IRS spend down requirements.
Okay, thank you. Just one last comment. This issue of debt service costs, it's a little perverse in that you're actually see an encouragement to increase your operating expenditures, which would increase your denominator. So
The former
It's
chief
a
of
risk
staff-
we've got to deal with.
The former chief of staff used to joke, no problem on debt service. We'll keep that budget going higher and higher to make sure that ratio is under 10%.
yeah,
So you spotted the unintended consequences and incentives, and we try to fight against them.
okay.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Henry.
Yeah, just real quick, Ann, I agree with you 100%. We have to be careful. I like the hard number cap that you had mentioned rather than the debt service, because going from 15 to 30 years is just pushing, things to the future, which is not the best way also. So I appreciate your efforts. And I realize that there are a lot of things on the table with the Board of Ed, and we really have to start, looking at these things very closely. And I'm for one, think that the AAA rating saves us, the city, funding and interest expense, and I appreciate your efforts. Henry,
Thank you. Roy, let me just add one more point. So financial theory says match the life and duration of the asset to the debt. And so here's my thinking. If we're building a school that's going to be around for 40 or 50 years, had we issued 15-year debt, there would be an overburden of current residents and taxpayers over the next 15 years to pay for an asset, and the residents 30, 40, 50 years from now would be paying less. So it makes it a little bit more equitable. And at the same time, financially, it allows us to spend a little bit more money in each budget. But I agree, I would always try to match those durations. And if an asset is only 15 years, we should only be borrowing for 15 years. It forces a little bit of discipline on the whole process.
Yeah, I appreciate your vigilance, but you've been in situations where I'm sure people were not holding the line probably with that theory you just mentioned.
Well, when I was in the Midwest, the famous phrase was scoop and dump. And Chicago was notorious where they couldn't afford the debt that was coming due. And they refinanced it, scooping it up from now and dumping it over the next 20 or 30 years. And obviously the credit rating agencies view that very negatively. We are very conservative in what we do. We don't have balloon payments. We have equal amortization of the interest over all of the 30 years. So we don't play games. We're very straightforward. And if we can't afford it, we go back to the expenses, the capital projects that we're looking at now, and we try to live within our means.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you again, Henry, for the education. Thank you, Ann, for the questions. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. We'll see you all on October 2nd. Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Doesn't it
everyone.
have to be seconded? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we don't need to second it.
I'm, a protocol type of guy. Have a great month. Happy Jewish New Year for all who celebrate. See you
You
next.
too?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.